want to make sure that we can all hear and you can all see. For those of you who can hear me and so that you can, or for those of you who are able to hear, can you just send us a reaction in emoji that you like or anything under the chat so that we can see that you can hear? All right, that's awesome. Noluvuyo, do you have a question before we start?
Sorry, I'm good.
Oh, okay, awesome. Welcome, guys, and really appreciate your time, and to our students as well, and to everyone. Welcome. Today we'll be speaking about social enterprise and finance, which will be our career conversation. And my name is Ntlantla. I'm one of the career consultant at Career Service. I'm here with my colleague Megan, who will be assisting to facilitate this conversation. So you'll see that on the chat, she'll be answering and posting some content. Please don't ignore them. Just make sure that you are aware of those ones. And as we'll be going on, there will be two things which I would really appreciate that we follow. One could be that when you attend or when you join as a student, please make sure that your mic and your camera is off, and we give the panelists the platform so that they can be able to share their stories as well while they are able to share their faces as well. And for those of you who have questions, please make sure that you post them under the chat so that we'll be able to note them towards the end of this meeting. So without further ado, I just want to welcome our panelists and for them to be here and giving us their time. And firstly, we have Zenith Ibrahim. I'll just read a little bit of who she is and a little bit of her background. She'll give more details as we go along. So Zenith Ibrahim is a founder of Jamie Life, a social enterprise that aims to redesign home care delivery. She is also passionate about solving challenges that affect our communities. And secondly, we have Etuna Hango, who is an analyst at EOS Capital, who he has an experience in private equity and social entrepreneurship with a strong passion for venture capital and SME finance. And finally, we have Noluvuyo Gqadu, who is the CEO of Gqadu, a social enterprise which is focused in teaching kids and learners how to code. Her passion lies in solving social issues through technology. So a warm welcome to our panelists, and thank you very much for joining us, guys. So on how we start this one, we'll start with Hango, and we'll go to Zeenith and to Noluvuyo in terms of sharing, then we'll rotate along as we go along with refining the questions as well. Just before we start, Hango, can you just share with us in terms of your career journey, where you start, what is it that you studied, your first job, and subsequently to where you are now in terms of what is it that entails in terms of a career journey? Can you please share with us?
All right, thanks, Klankla. And thank you everyone for joining. As mentioned, my name is Etuna Hango. And I'm an analyst at EOS Capital, a private equity firm in Namibia. So just a bit about my background. I studied business science finance, graduated in my final year was 2019, meant to graduate in 2020. COVID robbed me of that. My career journey thereafter was, I would say, quite, dynamic. Reason being is, when I was studying, I was signed to RMB Namibia. They paid for my university. And then when I finished, on the turn of COVID, there were a couple of head freeze counts and so forth. But I think at the same time, I had a couple of ventures running and I really wanted to put a lot of effort into them. So I'd say probably a blessing in disguise. I got the opportunity to not enter formal employment and focus on two of my startups, one in consumer literacy and communications and another in event management. And then that was a fun journey. I'm still very active on the consumer literacy and education and communications business. On the events management one, I'm rather passive on it. But then I made a move into private equity. And I think that's been very, very exciting. I think a lot of the I think finance curriculum is highly focused on listed investments. And I think I was exposed to a whole new world of unlisteds. I think it's a lot more dynamic. You get to meet a lot more people. Deal structuring is a lot more dynamic. Your analysis is a lot more dynamic, and you're exposed to, I think, a wider world of finance and more problem solving, I believe. So yeah, I think that's it.
All right, thank you for sharing that, Etuna. Zeenith, can you please share your story?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. I also graduated with a business science degree in finance, but in 2005. And as I was listening, I was thinking, oh my gosh, there have been so many winding, twisting turns along the way. I would always tell sort of my partner that I wanted to be like a chef, a pilot, all kinds of different things. But I think the reality is that when I finished, I was working with a child rights organization in Cape Town called Molo Songololo, and I always thought I would work in the nonprofit space. But it is difficult, both in terms of, I think, development as an individual, but also salary. I was, like I think many of us, the first in my family to go to university. And so being self-sufficient was really important. So I went to work for Procter & Gamble in their girls' school program, which I felt like was a great bridge from working in the nonprofit space and also, being paid a corporate salary. But I quickly realized that if you're in corporate, you want to be in like the center of the action. So I moved to marketing. And then I'd love to talk more about this hopefully later, but I did my MBA, which I got a scholarship to do that was incredible. And then I went to spend 10 years at General Electric, mostly in rail and healthcare that I loved. And, I think at that point in, I don't know, it was 2018, I realized that I didn't intend to stay in the corporate space for so long. I had a great career, but I always wanted to do something in the nonprofit space or in the social impact space for my community. But it was hard. It was hard to leave because I think in Black and colored communities, the transition is hard because you've built up you've built a career that few other people had the opportunity to do, and then to just say, I'm going to leave and I'm going to start something, and I'm not sure it's going to work out, was really difficult. For me, I think mentally, it took probably 2 years to kind of get through that transition, but I did. And I started a social enterprise that's inspired by my grandmother. And we provide direct care services for people who've had a stroke, heart attack, complications from diabetes. And we train family members to be caregivers so they can take care of people, to be accredited health workers, or if they just want to provide care for their family members, they can do that too. So many winding twists along the way, but really happy to be here. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Zenith and Etuna, for sharing your transition throughout your career. Just to add more, Noluvuyo, can you add through your career journey as well?
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here today. I also graduated from UCT with a BCom Information Systems honors degree. In terms of my career journey, I've worked mainly in the financials, across various corporates. I started working at UCT within the ICTS department. I moved in the financial service space as a business analyst within the tech space. And from that, I moved to heading up a technology division in one of the mining houses in South Africa. My experience has always been implementing various systems in the technology space for the various corporates I've worked in. And it was quite interesting when Zeenith shared her transition from corporate into the non-profit space, that I found that to be something that I could relate to, because in as much as I worked within the corporate space, I always knew that I have a passion in the social entrepreneurship space. And I always knew that I wanted to sort of change the world using technology or through technology. And that gave birth to my organization, or an organization that I had founded called Code Mwana, which literally translates to Code Child. And one of the main reasons why I started that was because of my experience within the corporate spaces, and the skills shortage would even go to countries such as India to recruit some of the skills we needed. And I thought if we expose kids early enough to coding, to technology, we could potentially be contributing to the future skills workforce and build these skills at an early age. I'm very passionate about technology for social good, and yeah, that's who I am.
Right, thank you very much. Quite interesting that you shared a number of similar trends and some of the things that you have to go through, and especially the transition that you went through from where the space that you are at, where you were at first and where you are now, which is quite interesting in terms of, you know, the career journey, in terms of building up to where you are now. And on top of that, since we are with you, Noluvuyo, can you tell us currently more about your current role and the current organization that you are currently at?
So my current role at Code Mwana is CEO or Managing Director. And basically what we're trying to do with Code Mwana, or what my role entails, is to take coding or technology, what you call this related literature, and contextualize it within the African context. And the main objective of Code Mwana is to help the African child go digital. So by us doing that, we're not saying, okay, we going into this technology space or exploring this space and using US-based case studies or Western-based case studies. We contextualizing it and bringing it closer to the African child, and say, in future, how can African kids be able to solve African problems digitally, and not only rely on solutions that have been developed in the West to solve African problems through technology. And if you look just at the technology landscape currently today of how we use technology, we're mainly consuming technology that's very much influenced in the West, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there is room to influence that and bring it closer to home by contextualizing it to our own unique African problems, which there's a potential for us to solve. And that's what we're trying to drive with Code Mwana and what I do.
Thank you very much for that. So essentially, just to highlight what she's saying in terms of the technology, which is the main force of the market now, and what you're doing is really impressive. And just to hear as well as into what Zeenith is doing as well, on just to build on what Noluvuyo is saying. Zeenith, can you also just share in terms of what is it that your role entails, and what in your current organization as well?
Sure. So the organization is called Jami Life, and I mentioned earlier we provide home care services for specific diseases, and then we also train family caregivers. On a day-to-day basis, you know, to be honest, I think my role is everything from trying to figure out what uniforms people wear to thinking about how care at home could impact rehospitalizations at a macro level, which I use my degree for. So I find it really exciting, but I also find that I need to switch from sort of strategic thinking to, okay, practically, did I pay people this month? Almost on a minute-by-minute basis, which is really exciting. And you're starting everything from scratch. So writing processes, writing job descriptions, all kinds of things that I sort of knew at the back of my mind, but it takes so much time, and doing something from scratch is so much harder than, you get something from HR and you're like, oh, maybe I'm going to tweak this. But yeah, that's kind of what my role as founder and CEO, though calling myself a CEO feels a little bit strange, because we're so small still. But yeah, that's what it entails.
All right, thank you very much. Etuna, can you just add more in terms of your role and your current organization as well?
So I think, yeah, from my side, I'll say that I split my time almost right in the middle between two organizations. One being my startup, Foster Digital Education, and the other being EOS Capital, the private equity firm I work for. So I think with Foster, a lot of my time really goes into strategy, business development, and I think I would say really honing in on financial literacy. We've I'd say noticed a gap in financial literacy in the country, and I'd say it's probably a problem. It's probably a bigger problem on the continent as well. So we're trying to do what we can to essentially upskill the nation and hopefully one day the continent in terms of their financial literacy adequacy levels by engaging industry players, usually mostly financial services providers, and finding how we can leverage our expertise and resources to ensure that the literacy is more, the educational content is more widely accessible to all demographics from all backgrounds. At EOS Capital, where I'm an investment analyst, my day-to-day is actually quite dynamic. It goes from business development, going out, meeting people, having lunches, dinners, whatever it may be, finding deals. We have 3 funds under management: General Private Equity Fund, which just does general businesses, an Infra Fund, which looks at hard infrastructure, and an Agri Fund, which basically does everything agri under the sun. So it's a lot of going out, meeting people, finding out what's happening on the ground, looking for the investment opportunities, running the potential returns and valuations. And on the one fund, which is fully invested, the General Private Equity Funds, also finding exit opportunities for this portfolio and for these companies. So yeah, I think that role it's quite dynamic. You do everything across the board, from meeting the promoters to helping them structure their business properly, to doing the valuations, the discounted cash flows, whatever it may be, presenting it to the investment committees, doing the due diligence on the deals, and so forth.
All right, thank you for that. This is quite interesting, just to capture everything that you are mentioning, from upskilling the community from financial literacy to impacting and giving them technological tools that they can use in future, and to home delivery systems, which also supports and give the impact to the community. It's quite interesting when listening in terms of how you share your stories and all of that. Just from what you are mentioning, just to start with, Zeenith, what are some of the skills that you use on a daily basis in your organization or in your role? This could be skills that you have learned throughout the journey or from your degree. What are the core skills that you think that are really the core skills you use on a daily basis?
I think probably the biggest skill or attribute that I think I need is managing people, or maybe managing is the wrong word, but working with a team, or working with partners, or working with other stakeholders to further our mission. And I think particularly with my team, making sure that they have what they need to do the work that they have to do. And then also trying to solve problems for them. So we had a challenge a few days ago where a team of health workers needed to go into a community and didn't feel safe. And so how to navigate that and how to support them to still support the patients that we're trying to serve, but also recognizing that it's really hard to do that work in our communities. They're not only trying to support the individual patient, but they're also navigating how do they get there, who can they talk to, who can they ask for directions, all kinds of things like that. So, and then at the same time, sort of trying to bring on board other partners or people that can support our work. So I think this sort of people aspect of my work and trying to connect with people, trying to bring together organizations or individuals that want to work together to further this mission of care for everyone is probably a skill that I use all the time. Sales is another one. Like, I think we're always selling, not necessarily because we're currently, we provide most of our services free. Some are paid, so not selling to at the consumer level, but just in terms of, I think this, I didn't realize until I left the corporate world how difficult it is to sort of sell your own ideas, or, just standing by it and sort of telling people, this is what I want to do and I believe in it and I'm committing all of my energy to it. And then I do think my finance degree continues to be really helpful. I have had to do several sort of sets of financials for donors or grant applications. And I'm just really grateful that I have that foundational skills. So I'd say those three things, sort of managing or working with people, the finance, basic skills that I learned in my degree, and then sales or commercial type skills.
All right, thank you for indicating, such important skills which are really needed within the job market and the industry as well, which is very important. Just to add more, Etuna and Noluvuyo, can you add more in terms of what skills are, or that skills that you are using on your daily basis?
I think from my side, it's definitely sales, and coming from a tech background and as an introvert, as a person, doing sales or reaching out for potential business is not something that comes naturally. So for me personally, I had to really work on that skill of getting outside my comfort zone and knowing how to present an idea or sell it to a potential funder or a potential partner. And I think the second one, which we often neglect or take for granted at university, is networking, because you meet people every day which can be of potential value to your organization, and how do you leverage off those skills becomes quite key. So for me, it was learning to introduce myself at every opportunity that I get, learning to say, this is Noluvuyo, this is what I do, and building what you call this meaningful relations. And I think most importantly, from my qualification or become information systems degree, it's understanding how the various systems work and how you can use technology to solve problems, because we don't just use technology for the fun of things, or people don't just innovate because they don't have time. We do that because we're trying to solve a particular problem. It's trying to link technology to a particular problem in society. And I think that has become very variable in terms of the work that I do.
All right, thank you, Noluvuyo, for sharing that. In terms of sharing the different skills which are really needed and which are core value when you're developing yourself, because you also mentioned that, as an individual, you had to also develop some of the skills which you did not use, and relearning some of the things. It's also important because you want to develop and grow as well. Thank you for sharing that. Etuna?
I think my co-panelists really touched on everything I had in mind. And maybe just to add on to what they're saying, I really think And I think it's something that we really miss out on in university. It's the sales, networking, people skills. I'll put them all in one bucket because essentially, it all teaches you how to deal with people and how to essentially extract the most value from the people that surround you. So, I mean, with sales, really, you're always selling. And I'll use an example that will be relatable to students is that you're on campus and you're courting a girl, for example. You are selling a product. You need to know how to present yourself. You are the product and you're selling what you can offer. And it's like that in the workplace. When you go into an interview, you're selling yourself. You're saying, this is who I am, this is what I can do, and this is why you should hire me and not anyone else. When you're getting business for your startup or financing, you're like, this is why you should finance me and not, the other guy who just walked out of the room now. I'm better, and these are the reasons I'm better. So a lot of what you will encounter in your professional career moving forward is really selling and understanding, how to present your ideas to different stakeholders, and how to, again, extract the most value from your encounters with people from different backgrounds. I think another one that wasn't touched on that I really found valuable is the ability or knowing how to research. How to research efficiently, what keywords to put in, how to synthesize information. Because a lot of people can summarize information, but at the end of the day, they'll be like, website A says A, B, C, D, and B says E, F, G. But so what? What does that mean? And I think through my honors project, you get a lot of research and you present a lot of facts on the table, but being able to synthesize those facts into, I'd say, a statement that supports your hypothesis or hypotheses, is a very useful skill. And I'd say the third one then would be financial modeling and Excel. If you're looking to get a job in finance or investments or whatever it may be, you're going to need to know how to, do your DCFs. You're going to need to know how to use Excel. The if statements become very useful that they teach you in IS1. So yeah, I think those are the three that I would really say stood out for me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And it's quite interesting that you mentioned Excel, because it's one of the core skills which it's currently needed in the market. And just to highlight as well what Zeenith and Noluvuyo mentioned, it's that skills are transferable throughout. As you have mentioned, guys, you are from different job markets and you have different experiences which you have taken skills from. As Zeenith mentioned, she's currently using her financial skills in an social enterprise which she's currently running, and also Noluvuyo in terms of using her technological skills in the in social enterprise that she's currently running. That means that skills are transferable and they are necessary throughout, going all the way. And also, I really appreciate also what you just mentioned in terms of that networking and people management. It's very important because those are some of the skills that are important, and these are skills that we take for granted while still studying, because we say, oh, well, communicating to this person and that won't build anything. But as you mentioned, that they are very important, and they build one within the professional level, and as they grow within the job market as well, they are needed, because you still need to meet with clients, you still need to meet with potential clients as well, which you need to network, communicate, and engage in, which is important. And also, just to highlight that networking is important, because one of the tools, just to highlight, is LinkedIn, whereby you can also use to network and gain with connection with other people. Just to move on from the, just to highlight some of the things which I just highlighted and what you just indicated, from the skills, the work experience that you have gained, and your experience as a student, and looking back from your journey, what's the one thing that you wish you have known as a student, or now that, okay, this is something that I could have done, or this is something I could have known before, in terms of where you are now? What's the one thing you feel that, no, I could have done this and this? Noluvuyo, you can go first, then we can go to Etuna, then Zeenith.
I think for me, if there's one thing I could have learned as a student is finding my purpose or meaning to life way earlier on. Because I think when I was a student, my next goal was to land the next good paying job. And for me, once I landed that, I realized that life was not about the money. And I know it sounds a bit cliche if you come from a background where you need to land that job, you need to earn that good salary to be able to provide for your family. But I think for me, if there's one thing I could have learned earlier, is that life is more about experiences and what we have to offer instead of us trying to chase the money. And one of my mentors always say, do what you love, and the money will find you in a way. And there's a lot of stereotypes that there's not enough money in the nonprofit sector or as a social entrepreneur. And I think to a certain degree, life gives us what we put onto it. So don't limit yourself based on decisions around money. Chase what you want to do, and don't let money be a barrier.
All right, thank you for that. Zeenith?
Or is it me? Sorry. Or is it?
Sorry. Go ahead.
All right. I would say from my side is, I think the key thing I wish I'd known is that your network is really your net worth. At a university like UCT, you're exposed to, I think, so many different kinds of people. But I think we don't realize how valuable it is to, or how valuable that network that we're in is around, especially if you, want to start a business or whatever. There are a lot of people around you with, let's say, similar, I'd say similar ambitions. And also throughout the campus, you have so many different sets of skills that you can really leverage for almost nothing to essentially build an organization or a startup, whatever it may be. I mean, on top of that, you have all these events happening on campus, all these societies, and they bring in all these industry experts from all different backgrounds. And you really get the opportunity to speak to these people and to, get yourself out there and so forth. But I think I mean, I would say it's the student dilemma where you only realize it when you're out of the environment that you've wasted, a lot of time and a lot of opportunities really to get yourself to, I think, just to propel your career a bit further forward. Also, another thing is that I was speaking to Nklankla earlier, and before everyone joined, I joined a bit early, and the career services, had I known that, the kind of support they provide students in terms of career guidance, in terms of linking you to career or to industry experts or people in the organizations that you see yourself wanting to work in someday, I would have visited them a lot more. That's the second one. And the third one is just, and I wouldn't say it's one thing I wish I had known, but it's one thing I wish I took advantage more of, and it's the library. And both the physical library on campus and just the online access to the journals, the Google Scholar. I think that's very priceless. Not having access to it and thinking about all the information I need today to do both my job and to run the business. I think that stuff's very invaluable, and it's information I'll probably never have access to for that cheap ever again in my life unless I re-enroll to UCT.
All right, that's quite interesting and very valuable information that you just shared. Zeenith, can you go ahead?
Sure, and I'll actually also respond to one of the questions in the chat on advice for students in their first years trying to start their own business or nonprofit. So there's a couple for you as well. So I think in terms of starting a nonprofit, and I tried to do it 3 times. So when I was in undergrad, I've always wanted to start something that is of social impact, and originally I actually thought it would be in the food industry when I was at UCT. And then when I did my master's, same thing, that's what I wrote my application on. And every time I realized that I didn't have the financial means. So now finally I'm doing it. But what I found really useful and what I'm doing now, and I'm also in an academic environment as well, is that I'm taking every course to work my social enterprise through. So to the extent that it's possible, whatever coursework there is, whatever projects there is, I'm doing it on my own work. And that's been incredibly helpful because like Etuna said, you almost get like unpaid for consulting fees from other students, consulting, or you don't have to pay for it, other students or professors, etc. I'd say the second thing is that I would not be, in terms of what I would tell my younger self, I would not be afraid to ask and to just reach out. So even now I find, I emailed a professor at UCT a few weeks ago about something I was curious about, and he was more than happy to sit down and talk to me, not knowing me from a bar of soap, except that I was, and that I'm a UCT alum. And I'd say the last thing is that I really struggled with, actually whether when I started this work, whether I wanted to do something in education or whether I wanted to do something in healthcare. And I went to and fro, and I was doing pros and cons and trying to figure out where I could gather more resources, etc. And eventually I decided I'm gonna start. And I picked one that I felt closer to personally. It wasn't a scientific reason, but my only point is that I think a lot of people feel, and myself, I felt like I wasn't sure about what exactly I wanted to do. And I think it comes, right? Once you just start doing something, you might end up doing something that's completely different to what you started doing. But I think that the difficult piece and the thing that has to happen is just to start and to try to make progress every day, rather than wait for the perfect idea that you read about in case studies.
Thank you for that interesting contribution, and it's very important that you need to self-develop yourself, do additional things so that you can be able to get in the space that you want to get in. And a career journey is not always determined. You don't always know where you want to go, but as you mentioned, that you'll find what you like as long as you align what you want with your interest and your passion as well. And also, just to also paraphrase what Noluvuyo mentioned in terms of just one word, in terms of your move counts. When you make your move, make sure that it counts and your contribution will be valuable. And she mentioned something that it's not all about money, but what is it that you want to do, which is very, very important as well. You need to also align your interest with your passion as well. It's not all about money, although we need it, but it's not all about money, as she mentioned. And Etuna, in terms of saying that your network, it's your net worth, this is also very important, that you need to keep people close, don't burn bridges, and always, collaborate and be willing to learn from others as well. And as you all mentioned that, reaching out, it's also important, and career service and its support, and it's always there for students. And in terms of the services that we do offer, it's also contribute towards your career journey. And additionally, in terms of everything that we just captured and what you just shared, what's the one other, advice that you'll give to a student? And what will it be that, that you want to leave? What's the one thing you want to leave to a student today? We can start with Etuna, then we go to Noluvuyo, then Zeenith.
I think from my side, and probably will tie into one of the questions regarding entering or starting a career in finance or preparing for a career in finance as a third, fourth year student, I think the key thing is really just get yourself out there. I think in those final years, we get really, stuck on the academics and, trying to finish with good grades and whatnot. And it is of equal importance, but I really think get yourself out there. I mean, from what I've seen and experienced is that people are more likely to hire people they know. So if you are competent, I really believe that you can sort of build yourself an advantage by attending the events, reaching out to people on LinkedIn, and you'd be very shocked. A lot of the management and executive level people that have LinkedIn are very keen to chat with students and and whatnot. And if you just reach out to them and be like, hey, this is me, what's it like working at Citibank? What should I expect if I want to start a career there? How do I present myself, etc. When having those conversations before you actually get to send your CV in and complete your application form, when people see familiar names and you have the good grades to back it, there's already a bias in the recruiter's mind to go with you because there's some sort of familiarity. They've met you before, be it virtual or not. You've spoken to them. They kind of like your personality, and I think that's really it. Start a career, and I think almost in I'd say any corporate industry, be it like law or I think even with the engineering firms, whatever it may be. But I really do think that you really need to get yourself out there, because you will realize that when you're applying for jobs and you get into interview rooms and so forth, all you would have been exposed to is your academics, and you won't be able to answer many real life questions, which will put you at a disadvantage.
All right, thank you for that. Noluvuyo?
So I think from my end, it's putting your hand up in terms of trying out new things and getting involved. And also because we live in an era where information is so easily accessible because of the Internet of Things. So don't wait for things to be perfect and say, I'm not ready for this role yet. I need to give myself 4 to 5 years. Things will not, always be perfect. So go for that opportunity, even when you feel you are not ready. But the responsibility is upon you to go find the knowledge and to go equip yourself to be ready. So don't hold back, go for opportunities and put your hand up. That's the advice I would give.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Zeenith, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'd say learning to tell your story and why you want to do the work you want to do. I think we often, I'm still learning this, but I only really started very recently. Don't think about the challenges we navigated personally as skills. And I think once we begin to articulate it, and we're able to then match that to why we want to go into finance. So for me, for instance, when I originally applied to UCT, I applied to medicine because I think when you grow up in a community, and you're getting good grades, people want you to be a doctor or an accountant, actually. And I realized I didn't want to be a doctor, but I remember telling my grandfather that one day I want to do something at the system level. And that was my justification for doing something in finance. But taking that narrative and figuring out why it is that you want to do the work and how that connects to who you are, I think is a really powerful selling tool of, what differentiates you in the context of whether you're applying for a job or whether you're trying to start your own enterprise as well, including some of the things that were really difficult, which are stories that we all have.
All right. Thank you very much. It's quite interesting just to listening and you sharing your stories, guys, and in terms of your experience and adding value to students and knowing their why and sticking to your passion and interest. It's quite interesting. Just to build on that, there are a number of questions from the students which I will address them to you guys. And I see that others have specific, they are directed to specific individuals. So I'll start with this one for Etuna. This question is from Zeketelelo Bengu to Mr. Hango. Would you say there is a lot of opportunities in the job market for an investment analyst? Etuna, I think that's directed to you.
Thank you for the question. And I would say, yes, I would say we have quite a lot of opportunities in the job market. However, I must mention that it's actually quite competitive, especially I would say in Southern Africa, South Africa, Namibia. I have some friends in Bots and I think Zambia. It's quite competitive, but there is a lot of opportunity. I think what you need to find out is what kind of investments you want to be making, because there's so many. The world of finance is so broad, and almost every day there's new kinds of money looking for new kinds of things to invest in. So maybe just from my side, the trend I've noticed lately is that there's a lot of venture capital coming into Africa, and there's a lot of social impact, climate impact kind of money coming into Africa. So you will still be using a very similar set of skills to do those jobs. However, you'll be looking at different outcomes in terms of evaluating your returns, because ultimately that's what investors look for, returns, but they look for returns in different ways. You have a lot of wealthy people currently who are trying to solve the climate problem. So for them, they don't really want a 25% IRR on their money. They'll take a lower IRR. But if they can see the impact, if they can see the carbon credits or the emission reductions or the sequestration or whatever it may be, they'll be happy. So I think kind of look into, the different subfields of finance and investments, and I think look at what aligns most with you in terms of what you enjoy. You don't want to be stuck in a job you don't really enjoy. Very few people can stomach it. And then I think what you're good at and like what aligns with your, I'd say with your passion or purpose. So I mean, if you're someone who really is passionate about this climate change thing and whatnot, you'd make a wonderful analyst for a climate impact fund. If you're someone who really likes farming, an agri fund or an agri private equity analyst job would suit you. If you like the listed investments, you want to analyze your Teslas and your Facebooks and Netflixes, then you're looking for a listed manager. So just I think within yourself, try to understand what kind of opportunity in finance you're looking for, and then figure out what skills, both hard and soft, you need to capture those opportunities.
Right, thank you for that, and it's quite interesting question, and thank you for clarifying that and giving details on how they can approach that one. And there's another question from Sally Fraser. They say that how was your industry experience important or useful in your journey to starting your own organization? Any of you guys can take that question.
I think in terms of industry experience, it gives you a stepping stone of equipping you with the technical know-how. And hence, a lot of people will always advise before you start your own business, work for someone else. It allows you to understand basic operations of how things are done in the industry. And also it allows you to gain skills such as people skills, how to deal with conflict in the workplace, how to solve problems and all those things. So it becomes very valuable before transitioning into anything.
All right, thank you very much. Noluvuyo. Zeenith, do you want to add anything on this question or?
I think just wanted to recommend a book called The Founder's Dilemma. I'll paste it in the chat. But what it does is it does a really nice job of contrasting starting early and what are the advantages and disadvantages, and starting sort of 20 years into your career and what are the advantages and disadvantages. And it's been really helpful for me. So I think it might be helpful to others as well.
Thank you guys for sharing your experiences and also sharing the relevant information that you just did. And thank you for sharing the link that you'll be sharing on the chat for our students. And there is another question from Safia Lahadin. She's saying that what was the biggest challenge that you faced and who or what supported you to overcome these challenges? Any of you guys can jump to this question. Noluvuyo, you want to take a go on this one, or Etuna, Zenith?
Maybe just, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you can go, Zenith.
Sure. I was going to say, I think two things. I actually think the first was getting to university and getting through undergrad. I mentioned earlier that I was the first person to sort of go to university. I've had, my mom's a teacher, so she's done tertiary education, etc. But just sort of realizing that it was something that I could do, and then trying to figure out how to fund it, and working part-time. And as I thought back recently, that was probably getting through that initial stage was, even now, one of the most challenging things I've done, because once you've done that one big thing, I remember when I graduated, walking around like I was like, I'm one of the like X% of people in South Africa that has a degree, and that was just a really great feeling. And so that's the first one. And I think the second was making the decision to leave the corporate world, because of all the reasons we've talked about earlier on, about why it's so difficult, not having sort of the financial security or usual sort of, not usual, but the ideal social infrastructure support to just go off and not earn an income for several years. So I'd say those two things come to mind as the most challenging.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. Noluvuyo, do you want to take a go on this one as well?
Okay. I think for me, the most challenging was starting my own initiative or my own organization. I think mainly because we all have ideas in our head of how we want to change the world, and things that we could do to potentially change the world. But when it comes to implementing those, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of sleepless nights. It's wearing multiple hats, doing various roles. And I think for me, that was challenging in the sense that when I started, I had what you call this a full-time job within the corporate space, and just trying to juggle all those balls at once and still being a young mom, having a family. So for me, that was challenging.
Thank you for sharing some of the challenges that you face throughout the career journey, and while making transition from moving A to B. It's a number of challenges, but thank you for sharing as well, and in terms of what was challenging for you. And there's also one more question. For this one, I'll just direct this one to Etuna, because it's for him from Matthew. It says, when it comes to events, what's the best way to get most out of that in terms of knowledge and putting your name out there?
I'd say the best is to just be prepared. Go there prepared. Know what you want to get out of the event, and know who's going to be there. Know who you want to speak to, and know what information you want from them, and what impression you want to leave. But go prepared. Don't just rock up to an event and, you know, try your chance. Because one thing I've noticed about you know, the senior corporate people who will probably be, you know, your keynote speaker at the events that are organized by these societies on campus, is that they've dealt with a lot of people, and I think they can see through, mind my French, but the bullshit. Like, they can really see through it if you're just trying to be there and be generic and take your chance and ask a shallow question. And many people take offense to that because they feel like you're wasting their time. And I feel like you can do a lot more harm to your reputation and your personal brand by, you know, going to speak to someone just for the sake of speaking to them and, you know, saying things that you think sound smart but aren't really, because you haven't prepared yourself. And you should be cognizant of the fact that these are people in an industry that you want to work in, who've been working in the industry for longer than you've probably been at university for. So they know a lot more than you do, and it's going to take a lot more to, I guess, get their attention and leave a lasting impression.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm mindful of time, so we'll just take one last question, and we then will close with that one. So this question is based on skills. It says, in terms, from Matthew as well, in terms of technical skills that you can write down on your CV. This could include Excel, certificate, SQL, Python, and all of that. Which ones do you think are worth getting or learning when trying to get into finance space? Any takers?
Definitely one of them. I'd say Excel. Also, if you're good at computer science and coding, if you can code in the different languages, that's also valuable, because there's a huge push towards fintech, both in the larger financial institutions and just from a venture capital startup perspective. So it's a very dynamic set of skills. And then also really letting people know that you can manage and interact with people, because I think finance is very much a people game. People go to you know, there's a reason bankers get a big, I'll say, entertainment budget, because they have to keep people happy and they need to, you know, entertain the clients and keep those relationships. But I think showing that you can build and maintain a network is also very valuable.
Zeenith, do you want to add?
I don't actually have anything to add to that question. Thank you.
All right. Noluvuyo, do you have anything to add to that one?
I think data skills, we live in a very data-driven community. So if you can integrate skills around data, whether it's Excel, whether it's through other tools, if you can teach yourself those skills, it becomes valuable, because then you are able to take data in various forms and do magic with it. So if you're in the finance space and you have strong data skills, that's always an advantage.
Thank you very much, guys, for sharing in terms of what the industry's skills are needed, and in terms of also sharing your career journey and what is it that you got involved into and what you're currently doing as well. It's quite interesting just to hear from you guys and also sharing to our students as well. So thank you all for attending, and we just came to the end of our session, and really enjoyed having this conversation with you, and thank you to our panel for giving up your time and your contributions as well, and to the students who attended. Thank you very much. And thank you also for Career Service for organizing this session, and to my colleague Megan for supporting and giving us questions and certifying that everyone is getting what they've asked in terms of the feedback and information that they've asked. So guys, thank you very much. And this is the end of our conversation. I would request that our panel remain behind. And for our students, take care and enjoy your studies, guys.